They ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They crushed stars into submission. They turned entire species into footnotes of history. And then they found humans, not warriors, not conquerors, not empire builders. Just a small, quiet species occupying a tiny corner of the galaxy, barely 30 star systems wide. The Valkyrie Empire laughed. They had conquered 400 civilizations. They had erased fleets larger than most stars' gravity wells. They believed power was measured in numbers, in territory, in fear. But the universe does not always reward the loudest predator. Sometimes it rewards the one who learned the hardest lessons first. Because humanity did not grow strong chasing glory. Humanity grew strong surviving betrayal, surviving extinction, surviving enemies who smiled, promised peace, and attacked anyway. So humans made a single decision, one that would echo across the galaxy forever. No one enters our space. Ever. They warned the galaxy. They warned the empires. They warned the Valkyrie. And still, the fleets came. What followed was not a war, not a battle, not even a massacre. It was a lesson, and once learned, it could never be unlearned. The throne room of the Valkyrie Empire was not built for comfort. It was built to intimidate reality itself. Black stone pillars rose so high that clouds formed beneath their peaks. Light from dying stars filtered through crystal windows harvested from collapsed suns. The floor was polished obsidian, smooth enough to reflect the weight of power standing upon it. At the center sat Emperor Malthius, ruler of the Valkyrie for 3 centuries. His throne was carved from the remains of Space Leviathan, a creature so vast it once bent gravity around its body. The symbolism was deliberate. Everything that challenged the Valkyrie Empire eventually became furniture. Below him stood 12 admirals, each commanding a sector spanning thousands of star systems. Their armor, living metal, shimmered gold, reacting to pride and confidence. They were pleased. "Speak," the Emperor commanded, his 4 eyes glowing faintly with ancestral energy. Grand Admiral Zorith stepped forward. He was old, even by Valkyrie standards. His armor showed scars that never fully healed, reminders of battles fought before most empires even existed. "My Emperor," Zorith said, bowing deeply, "our scout fleets have completed their survey of the Orion Spur." The Emperor's fingers tapped the arm of his throne. "Proceed." "We have identified 17 habitable worlds," Zorith continued, "rich in minerals, stable stars, ideal for expansion." A murmur of approval rippled through the admirals. "And inhabitants?" Malthius asked calmly. Zorith hesitated, just for a heartbeat. The Emperor noticed. "There is one notable species," Zorith said carefully. "They call themselves humans." The word meant nothing to most of the room. "How much territory?" the Emperor asked. "Approximately 30 star systems." Malthius leaned back, unimpressed. 30. His voice was flat. "That is not territory. That is a misunderstanding of survival." Soft laughter echoed through the hall. "They have only achieved interstellar travel within the last 300 years, Zorith added. "They are young. Then they will learn," the Emperor said dismissively. "Add them to the annexation schedule." The laughter grew louder. Only Zorith did not smile. "There is a complication," he said. Silence fell like a blade. Malthius leaned forward. "Explain." Zorith activated a small device. A hologram appeared, an ancient document, stamped with the seals of dozens of galactic powers. "This is a declaration from the Galactic Council," Zorith said, "issued 200 years ago. It remains active." The Emperor's expression hardened. "What does it say?" Zorith inhaled slowly. "Terran space is designated a restricted zone. Any unauthorized entry will be considered hostile. Entry guarantees destruction. This is not a threat. This is physics." The room was silent. Then the Emperor laughed, a deep, thunderous sound that echoed off the pillars like a collapsing mountain. "Physics," Malthius repeated, amused. "They threaten us with physics?" The admirals joined in, except Zorith. "My Emperor," he said carefully, "the Council has issued only 3 such warnings in 12,000 years. Every time, The species involved proved catastrophic. Admiral Korath stepped forward, armor gleaming. "They are children," he scoffed. 30 systems versus our 400,000. Numbers decide everything. "Sometimes," Zorth replied quietly. "Numbers lie." The Emperor stood. The laughter stopped instantly. "We do not fear warnings," Malthea said. "We do not bow to councils. We do not hide from small species with big words." He turned to another admiral. "Vorth, you will take the 9th Conquest Fleet. 500 warships, planet killers, empire enders. Bring these humans into the fold." The Emperor continued, "And bring me their leaders in chains." Vorth bowed deeply. "It will be done." As the admirals departed, Zorth's console blinked urgently. "My Emperor," he said, voice tense, "we are receiving a transmission from Terran space." The Emperor smiled. "How bold," he said. "Put it through." And for the first time in Valkyrie history, a human spoke directly to a god emperor. The hologram stabilized at the center of the throne room. At first, many of the Valkyrie admirals thought something was wrong. The figure was small, barely 6 feet tall, soft-skinned, no armor, no glowing sigils of power, no living metal, no weapons visible, no display of dominance. Just a human woman standing calmly in a room built to terrify entire civilizations. Her skin carried the warm tone of a sunlit world. Her dark hair was cut short, practical. Her uniform was black, undecorated, unarmed, unadorned. No medals, no rank symbols, no attempt to impress. She looked around the vast throne room slowly, taking the towering pillars, the ancient throne, the glowing emperor. And she did not bow. "My name is Elena Torres," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I am a diplomatic representative of the Terran Confederacy." A ripple of quiet disbelief passed through the admirals. "Diplomat? From this species?" Emperor Maltheus rose from his throne, all 4 eyes fixed on her. "You stand before the ruler of the Valkyrie Empire," he said coldly. "400 conquered species, 12,000 years of dominion. Speak carefully." Elena met his gaze without hesitation. "We detected your fleet 3 days ago," she said. The room stiffened. Admiral Korath laughed sharply. "Impossible. Our stealth systems are flawless." Elena smiled faintly, not mockingly, not arrogantly. "We know," she said. "We studied them." The laughter died instantly. "We know the size of your fleet," she continued. "Its composition, its armament, its command structure. We know who leads it, where it is assembling, and when it will depart." Uneasy glances passed between the admirals. No one had ever spoken about Valkyrie's stealth like that, not with certainty. "I am not here to negotiate," Elena said. "I am not here to threaten you. I am here to give you information, so you can make an informed decision." Maltheus sneered. "How generous." 200 years ago," Elena continued calmly, "the Korvox hive entered our space with 3,000 ships." Zortha's breath caught. "They did not leave," she said. 150 years ago, the 7th Dominion sent 1,200 ships. They did not leave. 80 years ago, the merchant princes of Kalos sent 500. She paused. They did not leave. The throne room was silent. "In every case," Elena said, "we warned them first. In every case, they ignored us. In every case, the result was the same." Maltheus stepped forward, fury burning in his eyes. "You dare threaten us?" he roared. "You, a species barely past infancy?" Elena's expression did not change. "We are not threatening you," she replied softly. "We are trying to save your lives." The words landed heavier than any insult. "We do not seek conquest," she continued. "We do not want your worlds. We do not want your empire. We want only one thing." Her eyes hardened. "To be left alone." Admiral Voreth felt a chill crawl up his spine. "And if we refuse?" Maltheus demanded. "If your fleet crosses our border with hostile intent," Elena said, "it will be destroyed." The Emperor laughed again, but this time the sound lacked confidence. You expect me to believe that 30 systems can stand against 500 warships? Elena tilted her head slightly. No, she said. We expect you to make a choice. She looked directly at Admiral Vorith. Admiral, she said, her voice suddenly personal, I hope you have said goodbye to your family. A murmur swept the room. That is enough. Malthius thundered. Cut the transmission. Elena raised one hand. One last thing, she said gently. We do not make threats, Emperor. We make promises. The hologram vanished. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Admiral Cora scoffed. Empty words. Psychological warfare. Others nodded, but not all. Zora said nothing. Vorith said nothing, because they had seen something none of the others had. Certainty. Not bravado. Not desperation. Certainty. 3 days later, Admiral Vorith stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. 500 Valkyrie warships moved in perfect formation around him, enough firepower to end civilizations. He had led fleets like this 17 times before. He had never lost. And yet, as the stars stretched ahead toward Terran space, Vorith felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Doubt, not fear. Something worse. What is our status? He asked. 6 hours to the Terran border, his captain replied. All weapons charged. All systems optimal. Vorith nodded. Maintain formation. As the fleet advanced, space looked unchanged, silent, indifferent. No defenses. No patrols. No warnings. Just empty stars. And somehow, that frightened him more than resistance ever could. The border of Terran space did not look like a border. There were no beacons, no minefields, no warning buoys broadcasting threats in dozens of languages. Just stars. That unsettled Admiral Vorith more than he cared to admit. Confirm position, he ordered. We have crossed the designated boundary, the navigator replied. All ships reporting green. Vorith stared at the tactical display. 500 Valkyrie warships, moving in flawless formation, weapons hot, shields layered like overlapping suns. Nothing could touch them. And yet, long-range scans. Vorith asked. The sensor officer frowned. Clear, Admiral. No vessels. No structures. No energy signatures beyond background radiation. A ripple of relief passed through the bridge. Vorith did not share it. Maintain alert status, he said. Advance at half speed. Minutes passed. Then the stars changed. Not visibly. Not dramatically. They simply stopped responding. Admiral, the navigator said slowly, we are no longer receiving stellar drift data. What does that mean? Vorith demanded. It means, the officer replied, voice tight, space around us is stable. Too stable. Before Vorith could respond, the communications officer turned pale. Sir, we've lost contact with the rear of the formation. How many ships? Vorith snapped. The officer swallowed. All of them. A cold weight settled in Vorith's gut. Explain. I can't, the officer said. They didn't explode. They didn't jump. They're just gone. No debris. No energy spike. No signal. Vorith spun toward the sensor station. Scan again. Maximum resolution. The sensor's officer's hands trembled over the console. Admiral, I'm detecting absences. Absences. Vorith repeated sharply. Yes, sir. Areas where space should exist, but doesn't. Like someone carved pieces out of reality. The bridge fell silent. Report from the fleet. Vorith barked. One by one, voices came in, confused, shaken. We can't see the neighboring ships. Our long-range sensors are blind. Navigation markers are drifting. Then came the scream. A sudden, sharp cry cut to the channel, distorted, terrified, before dissolving into static. Which ship was that? Vorith demanded. The communications officer's eyes were wide with horror. It came from the Vanguard Spear, he said. Flagship of the 3rd Assault Wing. Vorith's breath caught. The Vanguard Spear was one of the most heavily armored vessels in the Empire. It could survive supernova shockwaves. Replay the transmission, Vorth ordered. The audio filled the bridge. We can't move. Something's pulling us. Space is folding. By the ancestors, it's inside the ship. The transmission cut abruptly. Silence followed. Then the tactical display updated. The Vanguard spear vanished. Not destroyed. Removed. Enemy contact? The weapons officer asked desperately. Vorth shook his head slowly. No, he said. This is not an enemy. The realization hit him with terrible clarity. This is environmental control. The humans were not fighting the fleet. They were manipulating space itself. Admiral, the engineer shouted, our warp drives are failing. They won't engage. Why? Because space-time curvature has been flattened, the engineer replied, barely believing the words. There's nothing to push against. Vorth felt his legs weaken. Flattened space-time. A theoretical impossibility. A technology that, if real, rendered fleets meaningless. Send a fleet-wide order, Vorth said hoarsely. All ships, prepare for emergency withdrawal. The communications officer shook his head, panic rising. We can't, sir. There is no signal propagation. We're isolated. Each ship is alone. As if to prove the point, another ship vanished. Then another. No explosions. No battles. Just absence. Vorth slammed his fist into the console. This is impossible, he whispered. The lights on the bridge dimmed suddenly. A new hologram flickered to life. Elena Torres stood before them again. She looked tired. Admiral Vorth, she said softly. We told you. Vorth stared at her, his pride finally shattered. What are you doing to us? He asked. We're turning off your ability to interact with the universe, Elena replied. One region at a time. She gestured and the tactical display shifted, showing massive geometric fields surrounding the fleet. These are containment zones, she explained. Inside them, physics behaves according to Terran parameters. Your technology was never designed for that. You're killing us, Vorth said quietly. Elena shook her head. No, she replied. We are letting you leave. Vorth laughed bitterly. We can't. You will be able to, she said, after we're done. Done with what? Teaching, Elena said. Another ship disappeared. Vorth closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he understood the truth behind the Council's warning. This was not a war. This was a demonstration. The first thing Admiral Vorth noticed was a silence inside the ship, not the absence of sound. Valkyrie's ships were always quiet, but the absence of vibration. No hum from the engines. No resonance from the reactor. Even the artificial gravity felt wrong, as if it were being politely tolerated by the universe rather than enforced. Status, Vorth said, his voice hollow. Life support stable, the engineer replied. Reactor output minimal but sustained. We appear to be preserved. Preserved, Vorth repeated. He had no idea what that meant, but he was about to learn. Admiral, the sensor officer whispered, I'm detecting something outside the hull. The main viewport shifted, and the bridge froze. They were no longer in space. They were inside something vast and dark, a structure without walls, without edges, a volume where stars existed only as faint, distant echoes. Massive geometric lines of light crisscrossed the void, curving in ways that hurt to look at. What is this place? Someone whispered. Elena Torres' hologram appeared again, standing quietly near the center of the bridge. This is a null pocket, she said. A localized region where energy, mass, and time are constrained. Vorth turned to face her. You said you were letting us leave. We are, Elena replied. But first, you need to understand what happened to your ships. She gestured, and the view shifted again. Dozens of Valkyrie warships floated nearby, intact, undamaged, powerless. Crew members visible through viewports, staring back in shock. They're alive, Vorth said. Yes, Elena confirmed. Every ship we removed from normal space was placed here. No casualties. No suffering. Vorth swallowed. Why? He asked. Because destruction teaches the wrong lesson, Elena said quietly. Fear fades. Resentment grows. We don't want that. The word struck deeper than any weapon. You violated our borders, she continued. We responded, but we are not your enemies, unless you force us to become them. Vorith clenched his fists. You could have annihilated us, he said. Why didn't you? Elena's expression darkened. Because once, she said, someone did that to us. The bridge was silent. Humanity nearly went extinct 3 times before we ever reached the stars, she continued. We learned early that overwhelming force does not end cycles of violence. It only resets them. She turned, looking at the trapped fleet, so we built something different. The geometric lines outside the ship pulsed faintly. These containment zones are not weapons, Elena said. They are boundaries. They allow us to neutralize threats without becoming one. Vorith stared at the view. How long can we survive here? He asked. As long as we choose, Elena replied. Or until you understand. Understand what? That power is not measured by how much you can destroy, she said, but by how much you choose not to. The feed cut. Moments later, Vorith's console flickered to life. A message from the Valkyrie homeworld. The Emperor, the image of Malthius, appeared, his expression dark with barely contained fury. Report, the Emperor commanded. Vorith hesitated. For the first time in his career, he did not know how. My Emperor, he said finally, we have entered Terran space. And Malthius demanded. Vorith took a breath. We are no longer participating in normal reality. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Explain. They have not destroyed us, Vorith said. They have removed us. Silence. Impossible, Malthius said. Respectfully, Vorith replied. It is happening. He described the containment zones. The null pockets. The manipulation of space-time. The Emperor listened in stunned silence. How many ships have we lost? Malthius asked. None, Vorith said. And all of them. The Emperor's claws tightened around his throne. They are mocking us, he growled. No, Vorith said softly. They are warning us. Malthius rose, rage radiating from him. No species does this to the Valkyrie Empire and survives, he snarled. Prepare the second wave. Triple the fleet. If they can remove 500 ships, we will overwhelm them with thousands. Vorith felt ice in his veins. My Emperor, he said urgently, that is a mistake. The Emperor cut the channel. Outside the null pocket, the geometric lines shifted again. Another human transmission appeared. This one not from Elena. An older man, gray-haired, eyes heavy with history. I am Secretary General Hale of the Terran Confederacy, he said. This message is for Emperor Malthius. His gaze was unwavering. We have detected your decision to escalate. The old man leaned forward. If you send another fleet, he said quietly, we will not contain it. The transmission ended. Vorith closed his eyes, because he knew what that meant. Emperor Malthius did not sleep. He stood alone in the highest chamber of the imperial spire, staring out at the galaxy that had bent to his will for centuries. Entire constellations had learned to whisper his name with fear. And now, a species of soft-bodied bipeds dare to lecture him about restraint. They think we are weak, he growled. The second wave assembled faster than any fleet in Valkyrie history. 3,000 warships, 10 planet breakers, 2 stellar lances capable of cracking suns. Admirals bowed as the Emperor passed. Launch, Malthius commanded. Erase Terran space. Across the void, human sensors registered the mobilization instantly. No panic followed. No emergency councils. Just confirmation. In a quiet room beneath Earth's crust, Secretary General Hale watched the data scroll past. They're coming, an aide said. Hale nodded slowly. I know. Containment protocols? Another asked. Hale shook his head. No, he said. Phase 7. The room stilled. That hasn't been used since. Since we swore never again, Hale finished. But they've chosen. Deep in Terran space, something ancient awakened. Not a ship, not a weapon. A process. As the second wave crossed the Terran border, the universe flinched. Stars dimmed, not extinguished, dimmed, as if someone had turned down the brightness of reality itself. Admiral Korth, commander of the second wave, frowned. "Report," he ordered. "Energy fluctuations across all spectra," his officers replied. "Space-time distortion increasing exponentially." Before Korth could respond, the first planet breaker vanished. No explosion, no warning. It simply ceased to be part of the universe. Then another, then a third. "What is happening?" Korth shouted. His answer came as space itself folded. Entire star systems, uninhabited, carefully chosen, were removed. Not destroyed, not shattered, disconnected. The galaxy screamed. Gravitational waves rippled outward, bending light, warping time. The Valkyrie fleet scattered as formations collapsed under forces they could not measure. Back on the Imperial throne, Malthius watched the feeds in horror. "This is impossible," he whispered. The Secretary General appeared on every Valkyrie channel simultaneously. "We warned you," Hale said. "We begged you. We restrained ourselves." The Emperor roared. "Stop this." Hale's expression hardened. "You crossed our border with annihilation weapons," he said. "This is the cost of certainty." A final command executed. The Stellar Lances, pride of the Valkyrie Empire, failed. Their cores unraveled as the fundamental constants they relied on simply changed. Physics itself withdrew cooperation. The second wave was not defeated. It was rendered irrelevant. Within minutes, 3,000 warships were stranded in dead regions of space, where engines could not function and weapons could not fire. No explosions, no heroic last stands, just helplessness. Back in the null pocket, Admiral Vorath felt a tremor ripple through the artificial space. "They did it," someone whispered. Vorath nodded slowly. "They didn't fight," he said. "They edited the battlefield." The Emperor collapsed into his throne. Centuries of dominance evaporated in silence. "What are they?" he breathed. Hale's final message arrived. "We are not conquerors," he said. "We are survivors." The feed ended. For the first time in Valkyrie history, the Empire did not know how to respond. The galaxy did not explode. That was the first shock. No supernovae. No cascading wars. No desperate counterattacks. Just quiet. Across hundreds of systems, Valkyrie warships drifted helplessly in regions of space where engines refused to respond and weapons could not be powered. Crews lived. Systems functioned at minimal levels. But escape was impossible. They were not prisoners. They were paused. On the Valkyrie homeworld, the news spread faster than panic ever could. 3,000 warships neutralized. Planet breakers rendered inert. Stellar lances reduced to inert metal, without a single battle. Civilizations that had once bowed to Valkyrie supremacy began to realize something profound. The Empire was not defeated. It was obsolete. In the Imperial Council chamber, the admirals gathered again, but this time they did not stand tall. They stood uncertain. "Trade lanes are freezing," one reported. "Client species are withdrawing tribute. Our border systems are requesting autonomy," another said quietly. Emperor Malthius listened in silence. The galaxy he ruled was unrecognizable. "They have humiliated us," Admiral Korth hissed. "We must respond." "With what?" Zorath asked calmly. The room fell silent. There was no answer. In Terran space, the mood was not celebratory. There were no parades, no declarations of victory, no triumphant speeches. Human leadership met in quiet rooms and spoke in careful voices. "We cross a line," one delegate said. "We stopped a war," another replied. Secretary General Hale stood at the head of the table. "We did what we had to," he said. "Now we have to live with it." Humanity released a single public statement to the galaxy. It was brief. Terran space remains closed. Our technology will not be shared. Our borders will be respected. We seek coexistence, not dominance. For many species, it was the first time they had heard power speak without demand. In the null pockets, Valkyrie crews began to understand the nature of their captivity. Time moved normally. Food and air were maintained. No suffering, but no escape. Admiral Voris spent long hours staring out at the geometric void. Elena Torres visited one last time. "You could end this," Voris said. "Release us." "We will," Elena replied, "when the threat ends." "And when is that?" "When your empire stops believing conquest is its identity." Voris laughed softly. "That may take generations." Elena nodded. "We have time." On the Valkyrie homeworld, Malthus stood before the ancient banners of conquest. For the first time, they felt heavy. He had ruled through fear, through certainty, through the belief that strength meant expansion. And now, a species that refused to expand had undone him. "What do they want?" he asked Zorth quietly. Zorth bowed his head. "To be left alone," he said. The Emperor closed his eyes. Across the galaxy, something subtle shifted. Empires paused their expansions. Fleets reconsidered their routes. Borders became meaningful again. Humanity did not become rulers of the stars. They became the edge of them, a line no one crossed, because beyond it was not death. It was irrelevance. Emperor Malthus stood alone before the sealed chamber known as the Hall of First Conquests. No advisors, no guards, no witnesses. The walls were etched with the names of fallen civilizations, thousands of them, each carved to commemorate a victory. For centuries, Valkyrie rulers had stood here to remind themselves of what dominance meant. Now, Malthus felt only weight. "Strength," he murmured, tracing a claw along the stone, "was never enough." The galaxy waited. Trade routes rerouted themselves away from Valkyrie influence. Former client species began to speak without fear. Even long-rival empires chose caution over ambition, not because humanity ruled them, but because humanity had shown what limits looked like. The Emperor summoned Zorth. "You were right," Malthus said quietly. Zorth bowed deeply. "I wish I had been wrong." "What would they require for release?" the Emperor asked. Zorth hesitated. "Surrender of expansion doctrine, formal recognition of Terran sovereignty, and a promise." "A promise?" Malthus repeated bitterly. "From an empire built on conquest." "Yes," Zorth said, "from an empire that wishes to survive." The Emperor closed his eyes. Centuries of pride cracked in a single breath. "Send the message," he said. Across Terran space, a secure channel opened. Secretary General Hale appeared, older now, his expression weary but composed. "We are listening," he said. Malthus stood tall, not as a conqueror, but as a ruler who had learned restraint. "The Valkyrie Empire withdraws all expansionist claims," he said. "We recognize Terran space as inviolable. We swear never again to cross your borders with hostile intent." Silence followed. Then Hale nodded slowly. "The null pockets will dissolve," he said. "Your fleets will be released. One condition remained unspoken. And the promise?" Malthus asked. Hale's eyes softened. "That you teach your successors what you learned," he said. "That survival sometimes means stopping." The Emperor inclined his head. "I will," he said. Across the galaxy, the null pockets faded. Valkyrie ships returned to normal space, intact, alive, changed. Admiral Voris felt his engines hum again. He did not cheer. He exhaled. Back on Earth, Elena Torres stood beneath an open sky. "We could have ruled them," an aide said quietly. Elena shook her head. "Rulers fall," she replied. "Boundaries endure." Years passed. The galaxy adjusted. Humanity did not expand aggressively. They did not intervene unless threatened. They did not lecture or dominate. They simply existed, watching, listening, remembering. And the galaxy remembered them. Not as gods, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as the species that taught empires a truth older than war itself. Power is not the ability to destroy everything. It is the discipline to stop. At the edge of Terran space, the stars shone quietly, and for the first time in a very long time, they were respected.